So whenever anyone talks about the greatest movie soundtracks of the 1980s, you hear the usual suspects. It's Top Gun, Footloose, some might say Dirty Dancing, or any of the soundtracks from the John Hughes films, from Some Kind of Wonderful to The Breakfast Club to Pretty in Pink, all great. Up next, I'm going to talk to several artists who participated in one of my favorite soundtracks of the decade, one of the best, from a movie that is still referenced in pop culture every single day. One of the songs from this movie makes up the greatest montage of all time that has motivated every single one of us to overcome. You can't really call yourself a true 80s kid without an appreciation of what I'm about to unveil. It's a little surprise coming up next. Hey music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you remember when every single radio station in the country played the 1985 charity single We Are the World at the same time, you're gonna dig this channel of potent music nostalgia every single day. Make sure to subscribe to this channel right now so you don't miss an episode. Click the bell, all that stuff. Also, make sure to become a part of our Patreon channel. So we just released an insider video. You're gonna wanna see some of this stuff that we have up there that supports our mission. So I'm excited to share a new show that we're gonna be doing from time to time here. We've actually done a few of these already, just haven't named the show. So today I'm actually gonna do that. I'm gonna call it Soundtrack. Not very creative, but it describes it. The stories behind the greatest movie music of all time. In the past, we've covered Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and then we did Top Gun a few months ago, where we have the actual artist take us through the music, the soundtrack. Well, today we're covering the music behind one of the 80s greatest sequels. One of the highest grossing movies of 1985 into 86, Rocky IV.
He's not a machine! He's a man!
Oh, how I love the music in the movie. It was actually just barely name-checked in the latest season of Cobra Kai when Johnny Lawrence and Daniel LaRusso are trying to get their karate students into that international tournament. I can't remember of it off the top of my head right now. But Johnny and Daniel, you know, they don't have all the high-tech equipment that their competition does, the ponytail villain Terry Silver. So they use unorthodox methods, just like Mr. Miyagi did before.
Probably all seems weird to you. Sometimes you have to train outside the box to get to another level.
As their team tries out in front of these judges, Johnny explains their style.
People need to run up a mountain in the snow and yell, "Dragon!"
I just love that part. I was watching it with my 14-year-old, and we were high-fiving each other. We loved it so much. And of course, Johnny is talking about that great scene, that montage scene. Ah, how I love that scene. Truly, that montage scene from Rocky IV is the greatest in movie history. I mean, everyone has tried to copy it after, but no one has equaled it. I mean, it's a song that really helps to make that training montage scene so perfect. Every 80s kid knows it by heart, which is appropriately titled Hearts on Fire by the king of the bar bands, Mr. John Cafferty, one of the nicest guys in the business. That's just one highlight of this perfectly 80s-centric soundtrack. The movie soundtrack was very successful on the wings of two big top 5 singles. There was the #2 hit, Burning Heart by Survivor, which actually Sly Stallone personally commissioned for the film.
In the burning heart, just about to burst.
You remember the band hit #1 for 6 weeks with the all-time anthem, Eye of the Tiger, in the previous film. And then there was James Brown's Livin' in America, which went to #4, a big comeback for the godfather of soul, Mr. Dynamite himself, James Brown. It's the perfect song for that setup of, you know, the Apollo Creed, that tragic fight with Ivan Drago, with all of its Cold War showboating. It seems to be closer now than it was back then. It's kind of scary.
Apollo is down.
I cannot be defeated.
Somebody get a doctor in here.
The song was written by the great Dan Hartman of I Can Dream About You fame, as well as Charlie Midnight, his partner. The Rocky IV soundtrack also had Robert Tepper's lone top 40 hit, No Easy Way Out, which was such an emotional gut punch during another great montage when Rocky is facing his friend's death and the decision whether to seek redemption against the killer, Ivan Drago. It's just the perfect song for that.
There's no easy way out.
There's also the Go West song, A One-Way Street, and a lost duet between the king of the movie soundtracks himself, Kenny Loggins, with the soulful Gladys Knight. How did that one get away?
It's someone on my line.
Point is, all these songs not only made the movie the classic that it is, but the soundtrack went platinum with a top 10 showing on the top 200 album chart back then. Up next, the story of several of the key songs from the movie with the artists who created them, including several stories from them about Sly himself, who was very close to the music for this movie, handpicking the songs and artists to a point. There's also a hilarious story when he met with John Cafferty in full Rambo garb. Trust me, this is a can't miss. Now, one thing that I do want to say about Rocky IV, the music and the movies before we get into the interviews, this is kind of important. I've been thinking about this a lot. I need to thank Sylvester Stallone. When I was a young kid growing up in the 80s, to me and my friends, and I'm sure to many of you, these movies and these songs and their messages of hope and courage and passion, they were our lifeblood. So positive, so motivating. They made you believe that you could do anything. You could accomplish anything. I don't want to get all cheesy, but you know what? I think I will. I don't really care. For those of you who grew up in the 80s, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Sylvester Stallone was a godsend in our growing up years, whether it was the time that he trained with his nemesis, Apollo Creed, to prepare to fight Clubber Lang, or when he was in Russia, climbing mountains in the snow, chopping wood in what seemed like Siberia, or lifting up that rope that was tied to that net full of boulders, to be ready to fight the machine, known as Ivan Drago, who killed his best friend, no less. Rocky Balboa taught us that no matter what, we could all do hard things. And you know what? That was pretty much the theme of, in my opinion, the greatest decade in the history of mankind. The 80s. The movies, the TV shows, the music. It was mostly about hope. From Rocky defeating Drago and bringing some peace between two world powers to Marty McFly getting his parents back together so that he could actually exist. To Daniel LaRusso doing chores for Mr. Miyagi, to learn the discipline to win the All Valley tournament.
Hey, wax on, hot. Wax off, hot. Concentrate.
To Ferris Bueller taking a day off to teach Ed Rooney that it's okay to relax a little.
If you don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
To Indiana Jones beating the Nazis twice.
Nazis. I hate these guys.
To Maverick's redemption after Goose's tragic death.
Need for speed.
To the Ghostbusters climbing to the top of the high-rise to save New York City, to Ray Kinsella's faith in building a baseball diamond in his cornfield.
The sky. Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria.
To John Bender's fist pump of triumph, while walking out of detention.
Breakfast Club.
Don't.
I could go on and on and on and on. And the music, it backed up all of these moments perfectly. From Simple Minds to Kenny Loggins to Survivor to Huey Lewis to the great John Williams. They gave us the will and the drive to be better than we were. But Sylvester Stallone and his performance as Rocky Balboa in Rocky 3 and 4, especially 4, and really the first two, all the Rocky movies, it was the blueprint. It was a time that I don't think we'll ever see again. I grew up in a time of great hope, Like I said, for the most part, the entertainment in the 80s was all about overcoming obstacles and being your best self, fighting for your dreams. My kids are growing up in a world of extreme negativity. I mean, for the most part, the entertainment pushed to them seems to have an agenda that seeks to divide them, to place blame, to control them, to shame them even. It's truly sad. I don't want to get off on a tangent or focus on that cancerous divisiveness, but I will say that the differences between then and now are easy to see, easy to hear, easy to feel. I watch these old 80s movies and I listen to these classic 80s songs with my two boys, and I can plainly see the effect that it has on their psyche. They're happier, they're more courageous, they're more confident, they're more positive. But most of all, they're more hopeful. We can all use more hope right now. So I truly want to extend my heartfelt gratitude to Mr. Stallone for setting the tone for me and so many others. You made a nerdy little kid with a heart full of aspirations to rise above and believe in himself enough to keep punching, to keep fighting, to chase a dream that I'm now living. Thank you for bringing us all together. I mean, you said it best. If I can change.
If I can change.
Я думаю, что каждый тоже изменился сегодня.
And you can change.
Here are the interviews brought to you by Zenny Eyewear.
So last week we played up in Boston, and we're riding to the gig, me and Gary, a guitar player, it's just me and him riding up to the gig. My phone rings, right? And I look at the name on the phone. It says Sylvester Stallone, right? I said, you gotta be kidding, right? So I click the phone and I hear, hey, Johnny, how you doing, right? I was like, so I answered the phone. I said, heart's on fire. And he starts laughing his head off. And he's going, man, that's right. He goes, you did such a great job on that. It was unbelievable. I said, he goes, that's one of the most classic, workout scenes in any movie in film history. And I said, well, I had the easy part. I said, I just had to sing the song. You had to climb the mountain and fight the Russian. He goes, I did. So he just called me out of the blue.
No pain.
What did you think when you first saw the movie with your song as the background?
Oh man, we actually went to the premiere, and I remember standing there behind Drago and Dolph Lundgren, right? I mean, he's huge, that guy. I mean, he was like a real fighter. We were standing there, my wife and I, and he was talking to Carl Lewis, the world's fastest human.
Right.
It was crazy. It's like surreal, And we were sitting in the movie theater, at the premiere in Hollywood and watched it, and I just couldn't believe how much that song was used in the movie. He loved
the whole thing. You usually do all the writing. What was it like singing somebody else's song, the recording of it?
Well, it was fun. Number one, and Sly was standing right there. I mean, he was standing right there as I'm hearing the song for the first time. My wife and I were living in Los Angeles, and I was touring. So, I got a phone call. I just happened to be in town, and I got a phone call from the record company, and they said that Sly, wants you to come and sing this song at the studio. Can I come to the studio right away? And I said, well, yeah, okay. So long story long, my wife's car had just been stolen. She had a little Volkswagen Bug, like 57, all cherried out, got stolen. All they found of it was the shell, right?
Wow.
So I called the guy up that she bought it from, who had like a restoration company for these old Volkswagen Bugs, because like LA, right back in the 80s. And the guy said, well, I got a 64, but it's not done yet. I'll trade you the 64 for the 57 shell. I said, all right. So I get on there, and it's a 64 Volkswagen. It's red, but it's all dented up and has like primer paint all over it because he's still working on it, right? So he said, you can take it. So that's the car I drive up to the studio in, right? And as I pull in, right, I look in my rearview mirror and I see in my rearview mirror the Lamborghini pulling behind me, and the doors go up like this. And Sly and his wife at the time, Brigitte, they get out of the car. And he comes walking over. He's like, "Hey, nice car," you know. I said, "Yeah, you too." You know, we went in and we listened to Hearts on Fire, and I'd never heard it before, but I kind of knew what he wanted, like, you know, hearing it. I knew he wanted me, you know, scream from my toes to, like, you know, get that big raspy sound on the chorus. So I said, well, let me try singing the chorus. And I sang it a couple of times. He goes, that's it. I love it. And then, you know, he left and I you know, sang the rest of the song. But it was exciting. It was a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
Well, and then he brings you back in to do the song for Cobra, Voice of America's Song.
Yeah. Well, there was at one point he was thinking about using that for Rambo, you know. So that was a couple of years. That was before Rocky IV. He was thinking about using it for Rambo. So they flew me out. I was on tour with the band in the South, and they flew me out to California. I had slept in like a day and a half, and I walked in, and it's like a Quonset hut. And I walk in, and it's just him in there, right? And he's got his back to me. He's got like the bullets and the headband and all of that. And he spins around and he pulls out his knife and he goes, on the dark side. And he starts singing on the dark side. On the dark side.
Really?
Like, what? Yeah, I got Rambo singing on the dark side to me.
Wow.
He's so funny. He's such a great guy. But
that's so cool.
In the end, he didn't think America's Sons was quite right because the lyrics were turn the radio on. I was talking about rock and roll music having something to say in pop music. You know, I was talking about that, and he didn't think it was quite right for Rambo. I mean, it's just, he thought that most of the lyrics fit, but it didn't quite work. But he loved the song, and he ended up using it in Cobra like a few years later.
Burning Heart in 85, Stallone calls you up and asks you again. I mean, that's how much Eye of the Tiger meant to him. Of course, Eye of the Tiger is used again in Rocky IV.
It is.
But Burning Heart, you're right, line by line, it had to be perfect. It was a number 2 on the charts, held off by That's What Friends Are For. And I remember because I listened to Casey Kasem every week, and I was so pissed. I was like, come on. You know, when you're willing it to number 1 is
right,
you know,
yeah, right.
And it didn't happen. But number 2, number 11 on the rock charts, he sent you the script. You took a copy to the pool and you read through it, and you could tell that this was a different story. This was about 2 superpowers going against each other. Tell us about that.
Well, right. It was that East-West tension. That was some fresh meat for me because I'd never written anything vaguely political at all. But really, it's more than political. Everybody has that struggle. And every line had to be good. You know, 2 worlds collide, rival nations. It's a primitive clash, venting years of frustration.
It's a primitive clash, venting years of frustration.
Bravely, we hope against all hope. There's so much at stake. Seems our freedom's up against the ropes.
There is so much at stake. Seems our freedom's up against the ropes.
It had to be good, but the funny thing is, we didn't have a title, really. We were calling it The Unmistakable Fire. And the original opening line for the chorus was, in the human heart, just about to burst. And Stallone goes, you got to do better. Every line of the song is great. And it comes to that chorus, and it goes, in the human heart. And to be real honest, I don't know if it was Frankie or Robin Lang, the music soup. I got to ask Frankie, or Stallone, who came up. no, it's got to be Burning Heart, the Burning Heart. So I don't really know the answer to. I know that I didn't come up with it.
Yeah, because you were worried there'd be like a heartburn kind of
well,
thing.
yeah, and there was already that Adrian whatever who had a hit.
Vandenberg,
right, and it was a great song. That sounds like heartburn. In other words, I was thinking way too much. So I was trying to avoid that, but in the end, it was the right title.
And what's crazy about it is you wrote it, 33 years ago? Mm-hmm. We're right in the middle of that right now.
I know, it's so weird.
Inspired by the Cold War.
Yes.
We thought the Cold War was over. Here we are, 33 years later, and we're right there.
I tell you, it's got to be redone and re-released. It has to be.
Well, and you brought a Wurlitzer up in the hotels you were staying in because you were on tour with REO Speedwagon,
right.
So you worked it up every day in the other hotel room, and you just come up with snippets of lyrics.
Well, then we came back to Chicago and brought Jimmy in, and the whole band in, and we cut it at a real different studio that we'd ever worked on because the other one wasn't available. And again, it was magic, the way it came together.
And when you showed it to Stallone, he said, I like it, but it's missing something.
Oh, yeah. That one meeting, we were up there in his office. He said, you got the Burning Heart now, but there's still something missing. And I said, okay, how about an explosion in the Burning Heart? And he said, yeah.
You brought in Dave.
Dave Ariano from the Ides of March, ex of the Ides of March. And he had all the cool patches. And he came down to Rambo in the Burning Heart.
In the burning heart, just about to burst.
And you got it.
And that was it. Stone loved it.
Great music video.
Great.
That live concert with the
That was a great video. Oh my God, very exciting.
That was right in that moment where Rocky IV, Top Gun, all these huge movie soundtracks with huge songs that were putting the movie on the map, and the movie was putting the song on the map. It was vice versa.
Oh, yeah.
Really cool stuff. But HBO used it in that documentary. It was a 2011 NHL Winter Classic.
Oh.
Psych has used it, and then it was using Grand Theft Auto.
I don't even know that.
The other thing I love about that song, how they used it in the movie, was Eye of the Tiger showing at the very beginning when Rocky's kind of resting on his laurels and Clubber Lang's doing his thing and training and hungry and ready to go after Stallone.
In the warrior's code, there's no surrender.
What's cool about how he used Burning Heart is that it was when he was training, it's the opposite. Now Stallone is like, I got to beat this guy.
He's got the eye of the
he
tiger.
killed my friend. I've got to do this. And he's doing all those. He's in Russia where he doesn't have his equipment.
And he's doing these.
And he's doing all that heavy.
Oh my God. The abs works. Oh my God. Crazy.
Carrying that thing.
Yes. All organic.
I remember watching as a kid, and we try to copy those things, me and my brother.
Yeah.
But that's what I loved. The way that you used both of those songs in those movies were perfect.
Yeah.
It was like you guys wrote a great song, and Stallone was able to just put it to the movie. And
the synergy between movie and song in general, that's so powerful. Look at the Top Gun hits and everything. It's
important where you use it in the movie.
It is.
It's really got to strike a chord. I mean, Jimmy is incredible.
Jimmy's vocal, when he did the final vocal, we're all in the control room. It was just an incredible moment. So his vocal just killed it.
So what are your favorite moments from Rocky IV? Leave us a comment about John Cafferty and his performance of Hearts on Fire to back up the greatest training montage in movie history, and then Survivor's classic #2 Burning Heart and all the other songs. You can actually get Hearts on Fire on John Cafferty's new Greatest Hits album. I've got it right here. I'll link to it below. It has all the Eddie and the Cruisers, both 1 and 2, and all of this stuff. It's really good. If you like our videos, we do invite you to subscribe so that you can participate in our music community. Do that below if you would. Make sure to check us out on Patreon and our merch below. Help us keep the music alive. That's the idea. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth matters.